14th of July. The Board of Supervisors of the County of Del Norte, State of California, is now back in regular session, and only those items that are scheduled for a specific time will be heard at that time. All other items can be taken out of sequence for staff and public availability. I'm glad to see the faces in the audience. Welcome. I would like to start with a moment of reflection, please. And now would you please all rise and join me having Supervisor Hemmingson lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Introduction of new employees. Do we have any? No? Okay. How about closed session? Any actions in closed session?
No
Council?
reportable actions this morning.
Okay. At this time, I'd ask for any deletions, corrections, or additions from board members to the agenda. In order to have an item placed on the agenda for action, it would have needed to arose subsequent to posting of the agenda and require action prior to our next meeting. While there were some items that did pop up, they are not deemed to be emergencies, so we're going to be handling them next meeting. Are there any items for this meeting? No? Okay. Well, let's start. I'm going to mix it up a little bit here if we can. I've changed my mind already. Let's go to the consent agenda. Can I get a motion on the first? I want to pull item number 5 for discussion on the consent agenda. And that's the resolution between the County of Del Norte, Crescent City, and the Healthcare District. But can I get a motion on the consent agenda for all those items except that? That would be items 1 through 11.
Second.
Any public comment on any of the items 1 through 11 except for 5 on the consent agenda? Back to the board. Comments? Hold the vote, please.
Supervisor McClure?
Yes.
Supervisor Hemmingson?
Yes.
Supervisor Gitlin?
Yes.
Supervisor Howard?
Yes.
Chair Finnegan?
Yes. And there was a proclamation that was part of that. Supervisor McClure, would you please read that for us?
Certainly. The proclamation of pretrial probation and parole supervision week. Whereas the community corrections is an essential part of the justice system, and whereas community corrections professionals uphold the law with dignity while recognizing the right of the public to be safeguarded from criminal activity, and whereas community corrections professionals are responsible for supervising adults and juvenile offenders in our community, and whereas community corrections professionals are trained professionals who provide services and referrals for offenders, and whereas community corrections professionals work in partnership with community agencies and groups, and whereas the community corrections professionals promote prevention, intervention, and advocacy, and whereas community corrections professionals provide service, support, and protection for victims, and whereas community corrections professionals advocate community and restorative justice, and whereas community corrections professionals are a true positive change in the lives of communities. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Supervisors, Del Norte County, do hereby proclaim July 12th through the 18th as pretrial probation and parolee supervision week, and encourage all citizens to honor these community corrections professionals and to recognize their achievements on this 14th day of July 2015.
Thank you. Anybody here to receive this? I think so. Did you want to address the board at all? Nope. I had a sneaky feeling. Well, thank you for all you do. Let's take up item number 5, which is to approve and adopt the joint resolution which is 2015-055, between the County of Del Norte, City of Crescent City, Del Norte Healthcare District, supporting efforts to ensure high-quality health care in the region, and to authorize the chair to sign it as requested by the CAO. Jay, you want to start it, and then I'm going to have Supervisor Hemmingson, who's been an integral part of that discussion, weigh in.
Some time ago, a couple of months at least, we have been meeting through a 2x2 committee with the city and the healthcare district regarding a draft resolution that was brought forward by the healthcare district in regards to supporting high-quality healthcare in the area region. Through those meetings, there was extensive discussion over the wording of the resolution, and ultimately the draft that's before the board today was acceptable to the healthcare district representatives, the city, who I believe has already passed this, and the county representatives. And as it sits today, the representatives on the committee, Supervisor Hemmingson and Supervisor Howard, have brought this forward for consideration by the board and approval and adoption.
Good. I'm going to ask both of them to weigh in. And Jerry, you want to?
Yeah, sure. I'll read the resolution in a minute, but we did go back and forth with many different drafts, and appreciate everybody's hard work putting this all together. As Jay stated earlier, we did start some time ago in trying to put this all together so that we got all parties concerned to agree to what we've got here. And this is a joint resolution of the Board of Supervisors, County of Del Norte and Crescent City Council, supporting the Del Norte Healthcare District's efforts to ensure high-quality health care in the region. Whereas the city and the county actively support the availability of affordable, high-quality health care for residents of Del Norte County. Whereas the inpatient, outpatient, and other health care services provided by Sutter Coast Hospital are an essential mainstay of health care in this community. Whereas the anticipated outcomes of the Camden study have not proven to be accurate in regards to the profitability, the anticipated census numbers, or the need for critical access designation at the Sutter Coast Hospital. Whereas it is in the best interest of the community to retain a local ownership, a local board, and maintain Sutter Coast Hospital's status as an acute care, non-critical access facility as economically feasible, whereas outpatient and clinic healthcare services also meet critical needs within the community, whereas the healthcare services provided by local physicians and other healthcare professionals are vital to the health of the residents of this community, whereas local doctors, along with the Del Norte Healthcare District, have brought to light need to address the community comprehensive healthcare needs, as well as the ongoing relationship with Sutter Health, Sutter Coast Hospital. Whereas the city, the county, and their residents are committed to the pursuit of maintaining existing healthcare services, as well as the increased availability of healthcare services within the community, which furthers the livability and economic vitality of the community and provides as much diagnosis to full recovery as possible within the community. Whereas the best interests of the community are served by all interested parties working together to repair relationships that have been fractured, to continue to work together to improve and expand existing healthcare services to the residents of the community. Now therefore be it resolved that the Del Norte County Board of Supervisors and the City Council of Crescent City affirm that affordable, high-quality health care is of vital importance to the residents of Del Norte County. We support in its efforts to maintain and expand the health care availability to the residents of Del Norte County. Commit to working together with Del Norte Healthcare District and all health care providers within the county, including Sutter Coast Hospital, to maintain inpatient and outpatient hospital services, improve and expand outpatient and clinic services, continue efforts to recruit and retain quality physicians and other healthcare professionals in the community. Develop initiatives to ensure the availability of high-quality, affordable health care to the residents of Del Norte County, and seek additional resources, services, and relationships to strengthen health care delivery in the community. and will engage the community in determining additional affordable and practical ways to maintain and increase access to health care for the residents of Delmar County. So
Okay.
this is what is before us, and Supervisor Howard, do you want to add anything to that?
You can start with the motion.
You'd like that.
Yeah. Can I get a motion on this so we can continue the discussion?
I'd like to make a motion to approve.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Supervisor Howard, go ahead.
This has been a long-standing issue in the county, and when the healthcare district board members, Dwayne Reichlin and Terry McNamara, approached us on this issue, it was more for a calling of unity, and more importantly, showing connectiveness between the local governments, that we're all unified in this quest for top healthcare in our county. And I've known these individuals for quite some time, and I have no reason to doubt any issue that they're going through when it comes to, let's say, disrespect, potentially for a lot of our community members. But at the same time, we have to get over some hurdles, and I think this resolution, to a large extent, through compromise between the city, the county, and the healthcare district, speaks those words that help bring us back together and heal some of those long-standing wounds.
I'm going to open it up to some public comment before I bring it back to the board. Any member of the public? I know we have some members of the healthcare district there. I got some docs in the room. Who would like to address the board on this issue? Oh, didn't see you hiding over there. Please step up and give us your name and
Hello, I'm Joyce Strom. I moved here in December last year from a very small area in rural Nevada. I was a California resident most of my life and lived in South Lake Tahoe, California, where we had a very rural hospital, Barton Hospital, and I always had excellent service there. They saved my life numerous times, and different people I knew that had been skiing and different things like that in the area. Here, when I went to Sutter Coast, I was very severely disappointed, and also met a doctor that was an orthopedist that was leaving the area because he came here for a job and was put down for the job, told that there wasn't room at Sutter Coast for him to be here. So despite what a lot of people say about there's not anything to keep people here, he went to South Dakota to a rural community where there's nobody there, hardly at all. He just wanted a low-key job. So is there anything that we can state in this documentation that we would like to see some quantitative results from Sutter Coast to see improved health care in the area with them receiving our support? Because without quantitative results, I don't know how we can expect better service. I spent 10 hours almost 10 hours in their intensive care with a piece of meat lodged in my throat, and they bothered not to care for me. And that was very disturbing to me. They told me I could go to Oregon or down to Eureka. And I told them that that wasn't going to happen. And with about 9 o'clock in the morning, after I had my meat stuck in my throat, like 6 o'clock at night, it was over 10 hours, they told me that they were finally going to remove the piece of meat lodged in my throat. And that, without having, how would you say, a benchmarks to improve healthcare, I don't see how just saying we're going to all work together is going to help things. So that's all I have to say.
thank you. Yes.
Terry McNamara. I'm one of the directors of the healthcare district. It's my pleasure to sit with these guys and hash out these many, many different things. I would like to keep my comments very short. I made some statements in front of the city council, and I'm just going to bypass those. There's one point I want to make, and that is the healthcare. I do not want to pick up the paper and see Emily Jo Curtin report that you have your kids, your family, everybody in this room has a 34% higher mortality rate going to this facility than other facilities. Documented, 34%. We in the healthcare district, I personally don't want that. I want to pick up the paper and know that my kids are going to have a 34% better chance of survival. Thank you.
Thank you, and that is a benchmark we can all monitor and look at. Yes, please.
John Foster, I reside here. We need a full-service hospital here. People in Del Norte and Curry County have to drive for 2 hours, maybe more than that, depending, to get the kind of medical care that they need. And Sutter is what I would call regressive. This isn't the first hospital that they've reduced in services and overhead to make more money, and yet they're nonprofit. We need a progressive hospital. For example, I talked to a supervisor at Asante when I had to make a trip to Medford. They said they had wanted to start a hospital here several years ago, but they couldn't get enough community support. So I'm thinking maybe they could now. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else, please?
Wayne Reichland. I'm also a member of the Healthcare District Board, and I actually came here this morning with 2 pages that I was going to read to you folks, but I've decided that I'll stay that. And I just want to say that this is very important for this community for us to start rebuilding healthcare. We've seen this thing degrading now for around 10 to 11 years, actually, is when it started. It's really came to a head about 4 or 5 years ago. But we've got to do something in the community to all come together, take a message to Sutter, either tell them they need to get off their butts and start turning this hospital around, or they need to get out of the way and let us go out and find someone that will help us build a hospital like we had back in 2002, 2003. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, please.
Curtis Bauer, live over on Elk Valley Road. I wanted to thank the board for taking this action and joining with the healthcare district in the city. I agree with everything that has been said today and sentiments that Chris and Jerry have stated, and Roger and all of you. We've gone from 67 doctors, we're down to 32, and 2 are thinking about leaving. We need to be going the other direction. There is a foundation, has money in the community for bringing doctors in. We need to start, we need a cardiologist, we need respiratory, we need an active surgeon, we need some additional orthopedic. It wouldn't take a lot to fill that other wing like it was. This hospital was 70, or thinking about being 71 beds, not that long ago. And now we're talking about 25. The roads are undependable going south and going east. And it would just take one little trimmer and we wouldn't have access to healthcare south. So this is really important for you to pass and for then the community to work on making a change. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Next, please. Anybody else? Okay, back to the board. Supervisors McClure, Gitlin.
I just want to say this is a resolution, first step. It's the right direction, and I'm very pleased to support it.
I too think that it's time to turn the page and get back to a place where people are communicating, back to a place where people are treating each other with some respect and attempting to figure ourselves out of this mess. I know that 2 hours is a long way to go, and I know that that's replicating itself across the state. In fact, I think down in the Bay Area now, there are several communities that are almost 2 hours away from hospitals because of some closures. So I think that we need to be working as a community to actively figure this out. And I think one of the places that we need to figure it out is in the what charges are happening at our hospital compared to what charges are happening elsewhere in our area, because I think that that drives a lot of people to south, not because the service isn't here, but because, you know, if I can get an MRI in Medford in a week and it's $1,800, and I can get one here in a 2-week wait and it's $2,500, we really need to ask Sutter to look at their pricing and actually start making them competitive with the other hospitals that many of us use because of the cost. So that to me is one of the big issues that we could all, in a heartbeat, get around. And I also think that we need to be asking that full service should be happening. And that one is tied back to the MRIs also, that you can't, if you go in and you might be having a heart attack and they're going to give you the medication that could kill you if it's not, you could bleed out behind it, but an MRI can tell them if it's necessary. You can't have your heart attack on the weekend because they only do it Monday through Friday. So that, to me, there's just pieces that we could be negotiating right now as a community with Sutter, saying, this is one thing we want, and actually have a to-do list of what we're going to ask them for and get it done. So first steps are always the right direction.
I'd have to concur. Partnerships has always been my mantra. And, sometimes your energy and exuberance, you get carried away by charging full speed ahead, but the only time this community has ever been prosperous is when the elected bodies all work together. And that's what you're seeing here. This is a jumping off point. I think as far as measurements of mortality rate, obviously something we have to work on. We can start talking the needs of who's missing and hours of operation and expansion. So rather than picking us off one at a time and finding things to disagree about, now we agree. And I think aside from the City Council and the Healthcare District, I especially want to thank the docs that brought this to our attention. And it's not going away. This is not a settlement. This is a jumping off place for the entire community. So with that, I'm going to ask that you poll the vote, please.
Supervisor Gitlin?
Yes.
Supervisor McClure?
Yes.
Supervisor Hemmingson?
Yes.
Supervisor Howard?
Yes.
Chair Finnegan?
Yes. With that, we're going to go to budget transfers. Can I get a motion, please? We have 5 of them, numbers 12 through 16.
I move that we approve budget transfers 0607, 0608, 0609, 0612, and 0614, and that one has several 0615 and 0616 and 0617.
Okay, can I get a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Public comment on any of these budget transfers? Again, budget transfers are where money has already been allocated within the budget, but it's moved around to take care of unforeseen circumstances or needs as arises. Since there's no further comment, poll the vote, please.
Supervisor Howard?
Yes.
Supervisor Gitlin?
Yes.
Supervisor McClure?
Yes.
Supervisor Hemmingson?
Yes.
Chair Finnegan?
Yes. And with that, it takes us to 10:25, which is the public comment period time. Any member of the public can address this board on any item that's within the purview of the board. Try to keep your time limit to 3 minutes if you could. And who would like to go first? Yes, please.
Hello, this is Joyce Strom. I was concerned to find out that within our community, that when we have foster care children that have mental health problems, difficulties, and trouble with placement, and they need to be in emergency removed from their circumstances, that there is no recourse of action to hold the children in a safe environment where they can get treatment immediately and in a timely manner for their mental health condition, and that a lot of the children in our community are being moved around within the community without getting treatment promptly because they have to be seen by telemed through Eureka or possibly sent down to Eureka or some other state facility. And also, a lot of our children are being sent out of our communities, away from families, and possibly the possibility of being reunited with those families when there isn't the right mental health or resources available within our community. And I'd like you to consider putting more money into children's mental health in the community, because I saw, as a teacher, I worked as an outside contractor in a school district, and I saw a lot of difficulties that have happened through that. And also with the foster care system, I also saw children, I was aware of children that had ran away versus being able to be placed in good environments because of their mental health conditions. And actually the police being called in and having helicopters and different things like that, possibly, this is what I heard, I don't know for sure, but the police were involved instead of having the child placed in a safe and secure environment. It's what I've been told, or what I've heard, is a lot of times they don't get the services unless they do something terribly wrong, which we shouldn't have to wait until that happens. So that's just my concern, and I would like to see that we take up some sort of decision on that issue, what's going to happen with the foster kids and children in juvenile probation and juvenile justice system when they need mental health, and to provide better mental health services in the community instead of having to take them down or out of the community. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to, I went to the last one. I'm not sure when the next one is. There are a series of, not public hearings, but discussions with mental health right now regarding that budget, and I would invite you to find out when that next one is. Maybe Jay knows, or check with the Social Service Mental Health Department, and please participate. You have good input. Thank you. Next, please.
Steve Perez, Delaware County here. Just how about some good news, huh? Just some positive stuff that's going on? Yeah, all right.
We'll take some.
I just want to let you know and just kind of give you a brief update that through Barbara Pearson's leadership, 4 of the churches, and we'll probably be recording more, are going to be extensively involved in supporting Kids Day on August 15th. And Hiuchi Community Fellowship, we're going to be the cooking dogs for Jesus that day. So my church will be involved in that. But other churches as well are going to be directly involved financially, and as well as volunteers and participating in all the planning that's currently going on with that. The typical thing that we do with the backpacks for schools and filling them up with the school supplies and so forth and so on. The other thing I just want to also share with you too is that through that coordination, through that working together, we're learning much more about mental health and the services that are available in the churches. We oftentimes receive or interact with people who are in crisis, and now we have a better pathway to be able to connect people with the mental health department here, and it's awesome, just absolutely awesome. Coupled with that also too is a better understanding of how to access public assistance, and working a little bit closer in that point of view from when the county can help and when the churches need to step up and fill that gap in there. And so some of that coordination, we're developing that as well. And also strategies as to how we can bring in some faith-based resources that would help people grow in relationships, help people with their marriages, families, dynamics, all of that. We really recently introduced in a 1-hour session a class called Love and Respect, and we were hoping that the impact of that would be for teenage couples, and we have a number of them, and there was some interest as to how that possibly could be beneficial for teenage couples. And the interesting reaction, though, was more from the perspective of how staff could begin to use the principles of that love and respect immediately on the job as they related with couples, with men and women. So there's some good things going on behind the scene quietly, and I just thought that you guys should be aware of that, because sometimes we just need some good news.
Kids' Day,
Go ahead.
when, August 14th?
August 15th, Front Street Park. They're coming to you with the resolution and all that
Good.
good stuff, so.
Excellent.
Okay.
No, our CAO is going to be reporting out on some similar partnerships and collaborations towards that end. I thank you very, very much for being involved. Next, please. Any other public comment? Okay, well then at 10:30, we had a public hearing to provide the public the opportunity to hear and provide comment on the results of the activities involved in the Community Development Block Grant, CDBG.
Good morning.
Good morning.
This public hearing is being scheduled because this is one of the last final steps for meeting the public participation requirements with a community development block grant. Today I'm here to complete the closeout process of 2 of our open grants. First, I want to talk about our microenterprise financial assistance grant. This was a grant that was originally awarded back in 2011, and we worked closely with Tri-Agency at the time in order to try and facilitate some microenterprise loans. The requirements for approval of the loans was a little stricter back in 2011, where everything had to be forwarded to CDBG and they made the ultimate decision on whether or not the loan would be approved. In 2013, the rules changed dramatically to where they allowed us, once we obtained income qualification and business plans were in place, and they participated in the technical assistance portion of the grant, which was awarded through the city, that we could award or approve these loans at the local level. So with that, we went ahead and worked closely with North Coast SBDC to identify some micro-enterprise businesses, like I said, that were ready to proceed for applying for funding. So in order to fulfill these loans, we had to go to CDBG and request an extension on the contract because our contract was set to expire at the end of December of 2014. CDBG did grant us a one-time extension of 6 months, pushing our contract through June of 2015. And they tied it, of course, to 2 of the microenterprise loans that we had already identified as being ready for funding. The first recipient was Greenscapes Landscaping. This was a one-person landscaping operation. After all of the qualification for income, and the local loan committee did approve the loan in the amount of $50,000. And the loan was used for advertising, marketing, as well as purchase of new equipment and working capital. Since the loan, Greenscapes has been able to successfully take on and maintain 1 additional employee full-time, and has seen an increase in revenues of 35%. So he's doing really well. The second loan was that the loan committee approved back in November, was for a loan for Hensel's Seafood and Deli. This loan was to purchase equipment, inventory, a new trailer, and also working capital. When the loan was approved by the loan committee in November of 2013, it was known that he would have to relocate at that time. Until the notice of the relocation was received, loan funds were used for purchasing of equipment, inventory, and working capital to maintain the business at what was his current location. Hensel's received notice to relocate in May of 2015, and unfortunately, the contract with CDBG was set to expire at the end of June, so we were unable to fulfill the $50,000 loan and utilize all of the loan funds in that time frame. A second contract extension was requested by CDBG, and unfortunately it was denied. This extension would have enabled Hensel's to relocate, take the time to relocate his business and expend the remainder of the $50,000 loan. Therefore, based on our denial of the extension, The original loan agreement in the amount of $50,000 was reduced by the loan committee to the actual amount spent, which was $28,963. And the second grant that I'm looking for closure on is our public service grant from 2012. The county was awarded $500,000 to perform 3 public service activities. These activities included a literacy program that was run by the library, a children's advocacy program that was run by Casa of Del Norte, and a senior nutrition program that was operated by the Del Norte Senior Center. Between January of 2013 and June of 2015, the following accomplishments were reported. The Del Norte Library was able to utilize the funds, the grant funds, to assist 162 illiterate adults in the community. Casa of Del Norte was able to assist in children's advocacy of 68 children. And the Del Norte Senior Center utilized the grant funds in order to provide 930 meals to seniors in our community. With that, I'm hoping that this morning you agree to accept the final results of these grants as meeting the requirements of the grant and the various subrecipient agreements between the county and... Any questions?
Okay, so this is not for awarding any additional funds?
No.
This is to close out grants that were previously given?
Correct.
Okay, so I want to ask before we go any further, at the time, council, at the time these were awarded, which was some time ago, I had no conflict, but since then, I have employed a family member of one of the recipients.
Yes.
Do I have to abstain from receiving the closure?
Do you receive any sort of financial gain from that employment outside of your regular
From the spouse? No, as a form of a different, my real estate company,
Okay.
as an employee.
And it's a spouse of the person that received the grant? I just want to make sure.
Yeah, the spouse is an employee,
Okay.
an independent contractor working for me.
I think it would be best if you did recuse yourself. That way there would be no.
Okay, good. Jerry, I'm going to let you finish the discussion.
Okay.
Well, that's what I asked. I should just recuse myself on the one or the whole thing, to be clear?
I think you could do it just on the one that
Okay.
you actually have the conflict on. I don't think you need to do it on the whole thing.
Good. Questions?
I
Jerry,
did have a
good?
question on the Hensel Seafood and Deli.
Yes.
Since he's no longer able to do his business, is he going to have a way of paying that loan back?
I have been in contact with him quite a bit since he's had to close down, and he's willing to, he is coming in to sign a revised loan agreement, and he is advising us that he's going to repay the loan.
Okay.
He is looking to relocate, reopen the business, and with that, hopefully, paying down this grant, or this loan, be able to obtain future loans.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, with that, I'm going to go ahead and open the public hearing. And any member of the public, please address the closure of this Community Development Block Grant portion. Any member? No? All right, then I'm going to bring it back to the board. I'm going to close the public hearing. Final recommendations, Tony?
No? I just believe that we could go ahead and process the final closure paperwork with CDBG.
Can I get
closing both of these grants.
Good. Can I get a motion to that
So moved.
effect?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further comment? To execute the paperwork to closure of both these grants. Poll the vote, please.
Supervisor McClure?
Yes.
Supervisor Howard?
Yes.
Supervisor Gitlin?
Yes.
Vice Chair Hemmingson?
Yes.
And I will say yes, abstaining from Greenscapes Landscaping Grant. Thank you very much. In the future, just as on the radar, do you see any community development block grants? I know that the federal government is looking at cutting back. I know that with this sequestration that has been postponed a year, there probably won't be any community development block grants in the future, and a severe reduction in federal funding on anything. But do you see anything that we can direct funds to the tri-agency to help with the deployment of broadband in this community? I mean, to get it to where it needs to go. It's here, and we're not tapping into it. Anything along that lines?
I haven't come across anything,
Okay.
but I am searching.
Good, thank you. All right. We are going to, we have a 10:45, I guess I did pull the vote, 10:45 item. We're a little bit early, so let's go ahead and go to number 21, which is to approve and authorize the chair to sign the intergovernmental agreement between the Yurok Tribe, County of Del Norte, and the State of California concerning mitigation surrounding the tribe's hotel and gaming facility project as requested by the CAO. This is rather monumental. Jay, what do you got?
Well, for quite some time, we've been working through County Council's office and the Office of Administration with the Yurok Tribe in regards to the potential impacts and mitigation regarding gaming proposed in the Klamath area at the Yurok Tribe Casino. We've gone through a number of discussions for approximately, I guess, 2 years now. The tribe did a tribal EIR in which it outlined what the potential impacts could be from a very small casino. We sat down and negotiated a solution to that through an intergovernmental agreement, which is before you today. The last several months have been discussions between County Council's office and the Yurok Tribes Council, coming up with the language before the board today. It assists both the tribe and the county regarding law enforcement, and there is a separate agreement that we're working on also with extensive work through County Council's office that hopefully will assist in even better law enforcement through the Sheriff's Office and the tribe in cooperation. Much of the mitigation that was listed has been offset by the tribe through other agreements, either through other districts, including the Klamath Volunteer Fire Protection District or the Water District in Klamath, and those have all been finalized. So at this point, we are asking the board to ratify the agreement and then set a later date for a signing ceremony with the Yurok Tribe.
Very good. Can I get a motion to approve and authorize the chair to sign this intergovernmental agreement between the Yurok Tribe, Del Norte County, and the State of California?
I move that we approve and authorize the chair to sign the intergovernmental agreement between the Yurok Tribe, Del Norte County, and the State of California concerning mitigation surrounding the tribe's hotel and gaming facility project.
I'd second that.
It's been moved and seconded. Public comment? No? Okay, back to the board. This has been a long time coming. I mean, it also allows for a good cooperative agreement regarding, well, the grand jury picked on the volunteer fire department. It took care of that. It allowed for negotiations and cooperation, communication, and that's really, you know, what it's about, these partnerships, is cooperation, is communication. It allows for economic development. It allows for, most importantly, cross-deputization. So not only do you have a little more economically vibrant community, you get some beautiful buildings down there, but you also allow for a safer community, and that's what it's all about. So any other comments?
I would just like to comment that I would like to thank staff for doing a great job, and especially County Council's office for pulling this together, because there were many times that we were right on the brink of getting everything solved, and it would roll back and we would have to rework things, and it was through your hard work and effort and the relationship, I think, that you built with the Yurok Tribe that made this work. I also want to say that the Yurok Tribe has been doing absolutely a yeoman's job in the Klamath Town Center. I went into the new visitor center there, and it's really beautiful. And then I also have toured the new village that's there, and it's just starting to take a life again. Because I was here when Klamath went away, and I see it now starting to, hopefully, I was going to say it's going to catch fire, but I don't mean that literally.
We took care of the fire department.
Yeah. But anyway, I think that there are good things on the horizon with this cooperative effort. Thank you.
Very good. Poll the vote, please.
Supervisor Hemmingson?
Yes.
Supervisor Gitlin?
Yes.
Supervisor McClure?
Yes.
Supervisor Howard?
Yes.
Chair Finnegan?
Yes, which takes us to a 10:45 timed item, which is a received report from the Assistant Director of Community Development Department regarding the new groundwater management. We thought we'd get away with it being so far away from Sacramento, but apparently not.
Yeah, not even geography could save us in this case. So yeah, thank you. My name is Randy Hooper. I'm the Assistant Director of CDD, and this is an item that was is being brought to the board based on previous direction. If you recall, I believe earlier this summer, CDD was directed to prepare a presentation for groundwater, and so here we are. The Sustainable Groundwater Management Act of 2014 is actually 3 different pieces of legislation that is kind of cumulatively referred to as the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act. It was signed into law by the governor last September. But before we get into that, I did want to just go over our local basin just as a point of reference. So the local basin that we're going to be discussing today is obviously the Smith River Basin. It's formally known as the Smith River Plain Groundwater Basin by the Department of Water Resources. As you can see from the little map that I prepared there and from the narrative, the plain is irregular in shape. As you can see, it narrows to the south. And there are several faults that kind of provide the boundaries to the basin. The major structural feature of the basin is the inferred Dulnar Fault. That constitutes the north and east boundary. The north end of the boundary, as you can see, narrows at the mouth of the Smith River to a marine terrace. This terrace is less than 1 mile wide and extends northward into Oregon. The basin on the north, east, and south, again, these are various geologic formations. It would include the Mesozoic Franciscan Formation. The characteristics of the basin, this is a diagram that was prepared as part of a previous DWR publication. It does kind of a good job of demonstrating the geomorphic groups within the region. The Smith River Plain is formed by the emergence of a shallow submarine platform. The main aquifers do occur within marine terraces, river terraces, floodplains, and alluvial deposits, as well as sand dunes. This is another good representation of our local hydrologic units. Groundwater aquifers within the plain are unconfined, and as such, they're free to do hydrologic interchange within the various geologic units. Generally speaking, the groundwater movement is from east to west, from the base of the hills to Lake Earl and the ocean. However, in some places it does flatten, and in those places it depends on local river and lake heights, as well as recent precipitation for hydrologic movement. According to DWR, only about 13% of our basin is being put to use. The remaining groundwater, as is stated in the PowerPoint here, is either held in storage or is moving through the basin. Storage capacity of the basin is estimated to be 99,350 acre feet. That's based on a surface area of 31,070 acres and a depth interval of 10 to 35 feet below the ground surface. As far as the water quality, the Smith River groundwater is generally considered to be of very good mineral quality, with total dissolved solids ranging from about 50 to 500 milligrams per liter. The median level is 100 milligrams per liter, and it's interesting to note that this water meets the mineral water quality requirements for municipal and domestic uses, and is obviously of good quality for irrigation purposes. In terms of the groundwater level trends, and this is probably going to be one of the more interesting points to discuss, given the statewide drought and its effect locally. Within Delnar County, we're lucky. Generally, groundwater level data shows a seasonal fluctuation ranging from 5 to 15 feet between normal and dry years. Based on the hydrographs, overall there does not appear to be any significant increasing or decreasing trends in groundwater levels, and that's actually reported by the state themselves in the most recent DWR Bulletin 118, which was published in 2004. We do have more recent hydrograph data from our local monitoring wells, and this data is actually accessible to the public through DWR's website through the CASGEM process. And to highlight a couple of our local monitoring wells, this is one of those wells, and you can see the location of the well on the picture to the left. You'll see that it's north of the river, between the river and the highway, in the Smith River area, actually on Serena Road. This particular well, the surface ground elevation is 18.5 feet, and the well depth is 25 feet. And what you can see from the image on the right is the hydrograph data through the most recent monitoring, which I believe occurred earlier this year, March of 2015. So that furthest blue dot on the right would be from this spring, and that's basically going to be about the midpoint between the high and the lows, between the dry years and the normal years. The red dots indicate questionable measurements. However, based on the data that's available, I believe a pretty accurate representation of the basin's health is demonstrated, at least at this particular point. You can see there is seasonal fluctuation, but it's not a decreasing trend, which it is definitely a concern throughout the rest of the state where the drought has had a bigger impact. This is another monitoring well within our local system of monitoring wells. This is located within the Pacific Shores subdivision. The ground elevation here is about the same as the last, about 19.5 feet. This is a little bit deeper well. It goes to 30 feet. And what you can see in the hydrograph here is a similar pattern between normal and dry years. You have dry years and then you have recovery. And interestingly, since 2010, approximately, it's really flattened out. So we've had less deviation from the mean. The groundwater budget is a concept that is put out by the state, and it's basically a way to analyze the available information with respect to individual groundwater basins, and they classify the groundwater budgets as A, B, and C. A being the type of groundwater budget in which you have a lot of information, and that information obviously is used to make decisions and recommendations, down to a C, and a C indicates that there's a low level of knowledge, and making decisions and judgments based on a lack of data as in a groundwater budget type C would be a problem, obviously. We're fortunate, again, we have a type B groundwater budget that's determined by the state Department of Water Resources, and what that indicates is that we do have a reasonable amount of data that exists, and we can make conclusions based off of that data. So that's our local basin and its current condition, kind of in a nutshell, based on the data that's available to us as of today. And actually, I just pulled that hydrograph data yesterday from the DWR website, so I know there's nothing more current available. So the CASGEM basin prioritization, this is the process by which the Department of Water Resources has looked at each individual groundwater basin and made determinations based on the data that was available, and came up with priorities based off of that data. The CASGEM process is basically what establishes what basins require groundwater management and what don't. I'll just skip over that one. So to kind of get into the basin prioritization itself, there's various ranking factors that the state used to come up with the categories or classifications of priorities per basin. You have very low priority basins, low priority basin, medium priority basins, and high priority basins. And the ranking factors that they used to make these determinations included things like population density, projected population growth, total wells, public supply wells, irrigated acreage, groundwater reliance, various impacts, and other factors. And based off of those ranking factors, you can see on the bottom table, if a basin scores between 0 and 5.75, it's a very low. If it's between 5.75 and 13.42, it's a low, and so on. For our Smith River Plain Basin, we have been classified as a medium priority basin by the Department of Water Resources based on the following ranking factors. Again, looking at data components such as population data, growth, public supply wells, total wells, and so forth, you can see the data that they use to come up with the ranking factor that we've been given. On the bottom right-hand section of that table, you'll see that our overall basin ranking score is 18.25. And so again, what that indicates is that we are a medium priority basin. We fall within the range of 13.42 and 21.08. So what exactly does that mean? Groundwater management, to get back to the original point that I made, has to do with recent legislation in the state stemming from the drought conditions throughout the state. It's been codified under various sections of the water code, and it talks about having groundwater management policies and plans in place which are grounded in science-based understandings of the basin's hydrology that include maps of the basin and recharge areas. They focus typically on recharge enhancement, monitoring, conservation, and wellhead protection. They include basin management objectives, and I think perhaps most importantly to local jurisdictions would be that if you have a basin that is in compliance with the groundwater management laws as codified, they make those basins therefore eligible for state water funds. So groundwater management, despite the recent changes in legislation and policies, is basically still about balancing the supply and demand. Groundwater supply can be increased through the recharge or supplemented with surface water. Conjunctive management with surface water supplies can increase groundwater sustainability, and managing groundwater demand can include things like conservation and water efficiency, land use planning, and well construction policies informed by groundwater sustainability plans, and obviously with limiting groundwater use. Under the SGMA, some of the new things that are going to be required of local agencies will be groundwater management is no longer voluntary. The state will now review whether local groundwater sustainability plans can actually achieve sustainability. The plans must contain measurable objectives that will reach sustainability goals. And the SGMA grants new and additional groundwater management powers to GSAs. And in this case, GSAs presumably fall to the management authority of the county, unless some other arrangement can be reached with local agencies. And finally, state intervention in basin management is certainly now possible if an agency fails to live up to some of these expectations. Speaking of the expectations, a big one for us, and some of the big, I would say probably one of the areas of largest concern that we have, is the formation of a groundwater sustainability agency, which needs to be done by June of 2017. Any local agency or a combination of agencies overlying a basin can elect to be a GSA, a groundwater sustainability agency. Local agency is any public agency that does at least one of the following things: manages water supply, water management, or land use. And as I said in the last slide, counties are the presumptive GSA in unmanaged areas. And again, to get to the point of a combination of agencies, a GSA can be more than one GSA within a basin. The framework for sustainability, kind of the overarching mission of the SGMA, is an emphasis on local control, which is good, provides 20 years to achieve a sustainability goal. State intervention would only be if locals do not act. And obviously some of the other things we talked about previously, water conservation, water recycling, water storage, and so forth. In addition to that, some additional provisions for wetlands and watershed restoration under the SGMA. New SGMAs, new groundwater sustainability plans, GSPs. Options for groundwater sustainability agencies include creating a single GSP covering an entire basin. Multiple GSAs in one basin may prepare separate plans, but multiple GSPs in one basin must coordinate and use common data and methodology. And of course, finally, DWR will review multiple GSPs together. The new groundwater sustainability plans include requirements for a 50-year planning horizon with 20 years to reach sustainability, measurable objectives, interim milestones to reach sustainability goals, and then obviously things you'd want to have in the plan would include such items as a physical description of the basin, including the groundwater levels, water quality, subsidence, groundwater surface water interaction, historical and projected data on demands and supplies. And I would point out too at this point that the city of Crescent City obviously is the public water provider to the majority of our area. In 2012, they adopted an urban water management plan, and a lot of the stuff that's talked about in terms of the new groundwater sustainability plan requirements are actually incorporated in that urban water management plan by the city already. So hopefully if we end up in this position, there's a baseline of information that we can use to draw from to develop our GSP. But to continue, monitoring and management provisions, description of how the plan affects other GSPs, which in this case there are no other GSPs, or there probably would be no other GSPs. And finally, the GSP adoption as part of the SGMA is exempt from CEQA. Some of the things that the Groundwater Sustainability Agency would be empowered to do would be to conduct studies, register and monitor groundwater wells, which are some of the things we do already under our current monitoring program, require reports of groundwater extraction, regulate groundwater extractions, implement capital projects to meet goals, assess fees to cover costs of groundwater management. And obviously some of these powers would have larger impacts to smaller users, and so there would be some exceptions where the requirements may not necessarily apply to all small groundwater users. There's various agencies beyond the local agency that would be involved in the GSA and the GSP process, and obviously one of those would be the Department of Water Resources. They would have a significant role in the process, and as we talked about through the CASGEM discussion, one of the fundamental things that they've done has been the designation of basins based on their priority. They are supposed to be able to provide technical assistance to the local agencies. They would review GSPs initially and periodically to ensure compliance with the Act, and they would evaluate whether one GSP adversely affects adjacent basins' abilities to achieve sustainability goals. Another agency would be the State Water Resources Control Board. They could intervene if a GSA is not formed or fails to adopt and implement compliant GSPs by certain dates. They can designate probationary status if deficiencies are not addressed. They can create interim plans for basins until local GSAs are able to assume responsibility. They can also, probationary status requires a GSA to respond. Okay, so that gets back to the previous probationary status. That could require a GSA to respond to the boards and describe how it intends to rectify the deficiencies. Should have put that point higher up. So to summarize some of the key implementation dates, June 30th, 2017 is the deadline to form the Groundwater Sustainability Agency. January 31st, 2020 would be the date by which GSPs would need to be completed in critically overdrafted basins. That's not us. January 31st, 2022 would be the date by which the completion of plans in all high and medium priority basins would need to be completed, and that would be us. After 20 years of adoption of the plan, the goal would be to achieve sustainability within the groundwater basin. Some of the concerns that we have as staff, obviously the basin prioritization is a concern to us. Having our basin be identified as a medium priority basin relative to other basins in California seems odd, especially when you look at the hydrograph data that we presented. You don't see a decline. You don't see an increase or a decline. I think what you see is a sustainable groundwater basin under current conditions and under current management. It's our opinion that the basin is a healthy groundwater basin and that the methodology that they've used to identify our basin as medium is a flawed methodology. It doesn't take into account local climatic conditions, which obviously are probably the biggest factor when you talk about recharge. And part of that flawed methodology has to do with the Department of Water Resources classification of the city's rainy collector as a groundwater well. That's a huge problem because, as I said, the city provides municipal water service to our population. By extension, that forms the boundaries of our groundwater basin, and if you take the rainy collector out, you take that population out, you reduce the size of the basin, all of a sudden you're left with what would probably be realistically a very low basin based on their own calculations and methodology. As I touched on, it's our opinion that in the CASGEM process, DWR failed to include positive groundwater factors such as adequate recharge, and again, that was reported by DWR themselves. Positive groundwater factors, obviously this is a wet part of the state. I think even in a dry year, Delaware County would be considered a monsoon in other parts of the state. So that's a positive factor that I don't feel they've taken into account. We've tried to raise this discussion with staff from DWR, and we've gotten nowhere. We've engaged in a couple different discussions about different data points, again, the methodology that they used, and they're at this point unwilling to review the CASGEM's prioritization. They've also indicated that there's going to be additional ranking factors that over the coming probably year as the basin boundaries are revised will need to be incorporated, and that will be habitat and stream flow conditions. My understanding of that is they received some pressure through the public review process by the resource agencies that didn't feel that habitat and stream flow conditions were adequately addressed through their data points. I think specifically probably the Cal Fish and Game, whenever they reviewed the methodology that CASGEM used, there's certainly environmental factors that they would have probably preferred to have seen included in the calculation. So that'll be interesting to see how that plays out. And then obviously, what all this does is that it forms a responsibility upon the county to form a GSA for the development of a groundwater sustainability plan that really creates additional burdens on the county's already limited resources. So that's fundamentally, I think, the biggest issue. That was a long presentation. I apologize for the length of it.
No, it's very conclusive, and it highlighted some of the issues that we have concerns with that I'm sure we'll get into here. Supervisors, questions? Go ahead, Jerry.
Randy, I'm curious if we already have a sustainable basin, how do we write up some sort of program to improve that? I mean, how do you change that? What are they after? We can't change the number of wells, I'm guessing, or the population, or what they've projected as being the population increases, which is what they're basing all these numbers on. Are we trying to get those numbers down to be in a low? Is that what a sustainability does, is get you less points so that you get into a low?
No. The position that we're in right now is they have defined the basin as being a medium priority basin. So they've already defined it as us being in a situation of having to come up with a sustainability plan. The sustainability plan would include factors that would get our groundwater levels to a level where you don't have appreciable decline or increase. It's by definition sustainable. I think our contention when you look at the data that's available to us is that we already are sustainable, and therefore we shouldn't be subject to the same requirements as other medium priority basins.
Yeah, I know that RCRC was brought up that we were the medium, and I think it's the first time that I was a little bit concerned about it. And I think some of the measurements they showed, well, we got there because there was a decline between 5 and 10 feet of groundwater. And it was ridiculous. Number one, groundwater is not the measurement we should be looking at. It's probably a little bit further under the ground. And the other thing is that, it just smacked of, you argue you come up with the answer and then you develop the argument that we see so many times from the environmental agencies. When you wanted Lake Earl drained, you said that it impacted your septics. When you wanted it raised, you said it impacted your wells. Not you, but this, when we hear these kinds of arguments. And, I don't know how they came up with that figure, but we need to continue to fight it. That's the first thing. The second one is, what about Klamath area? And what about the recent legislation that calls for combining all the water districts within one, apparently, GSA, which is Smith River, Crescent City, Birch, you name it.
Yeah, those are all really well taken points. I think if you look at what's happening throughout the rest of the state, there's different interest groups within various basins that are kind of taking the lead in terms of forming the GSAs. On the Klamath issue, I don't think the Klamath is in the same situation as the Smith based on their analysis because of probably factors like population, groundwater reliance. It's not as much of a reliance on groundwater as they've characterized it to be in the Smith River Basin. But yeah, definitely a lot of political factors that are going to have to be resolved before I think this thing gets too far down the road. And I think even DWR themselves would acknowledge that when they talk about additional factors like the stream flow and habitat conditions that weren't fully incorporated into their methodology.
Well, you hit the nail on the head. It's political.
Yeah, and I first learned about this at the North Coast Resource Partnership meeting where the lady from Department of Water Resources was there, and I asked her if this categorization was written in stone, and she says absolutely not, but it appears as though it is. You're saying you're getting nowhere, so maybe I need to.
Yeah, we thought there would have been an opportunity to revisit the designation last fall, and we engaged in discussions with DWR staff leading up to that. And what happened shortly thereafter was they came out with a memo out of DWR that said the basin prioritization as it was set through the CASGEM process in June would go into effect, I think, January 1st or January 30th, 2015, so this past January. And again, we tried to engage in whatever opportunities we had to get those numbers re-examined. Ended up being an exercise in futility because, as I said, within a couple of days they came out with a pretty hard and fast ruling that it is what it was.
Okay, thank you.
Other supervisors? Supervisor Gitlin.
First of all, Randy, thank you, and it's a very comprehensive report, and well done, and I'm understanding the only immediate action will be for 2017 to develop this GSP. That's my understanding of the immediate action. Is that correct?
The immediate action would be the formation of a GSA, the Groundwater Sustainability Agency.
By June of 2017?
Correct.
I'm looking at your time. So what is the plan for developing that?
Well, that's part of the reason why we're here. We wanted to bring it to the board's attention as an issue of concern, and to receive direction from the board whether that was to proceed, with the formation of this GSA, or if we look into other maybe political options, such as letters from our representatives to DWR to maybe put some pressure on whether or not this is something that is in fact set in stone, as Supervisor Hemmingson kind of indicated. And again, I think there's a couple different points that should be brought probably to our local or our elected representatives' attention, which is, again, the classification of the Rainey collector. To me, that's a huge one.
Population data?
Pardon?
Population data?
Population data, yeah, there's a number of different factors, but I think underlying all that is again, the classification of the Rainey collector as a groundwater well. If obviously it's a surface water source that it's drawing from on the Smith River, that seems to be a pretty easy argument to make, that if we brought the right political pressure, maybe they would see the light.
Supervisor Howard.
And that's just it. I mean, we're talking about another unfunded state mandate. I can think of no other place in the state of California that has water levels like we do. And sustainable, as Supervisor Hemmingson pointed out, we've got the data to show it. We are a type B. Type B, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, the groundwater budget is a type B.
That's what they put us. We want to be an A.
Well, an A would indicate that there's more data available to make that determination. A B indicates there's sufficient data available.
But I suspect this board really needs to review how we approach the next steps with DWR to get those doors opened up so we can begin to fight this issue with the Rainey collector. Population growth, if I could recall, and I know we looked at this in the 2020 plan decades ago, population growth we have not seen in this community, and I'm not sure how they're coming up with a projection of 30,000 people in this community with no industry to drive that population growth. It stuns me. And then the fact that they're closing the door right now and then saying they're going to add additional data type points specific to habitat and stream flow, which is a surface water indicator, not necessarily a water indicator for groundwater, baffles me even more. And it just reeks of arbitrary decisions that are being made at a state level that we need to address politically instead of through the science, which they don't seem to be recognizing here.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead. Go ahead.
There was an option to do nothing on one of your, how would that play out, do you think?
The way it would play out would be the state taking over the management of our groundwater resources.
Oh, we don't want that, okay. Just double checking. Yeah, I think that we should probably possibly direct staff as part of this, that we need to be in dialogue with McGuire and Wood.
Okay, so I'm going to take some public comment, and then we'll come back. There is no action to be taken today, but we most definitely will be giving some direction. And I think we've got a couple of ideas on that. So public comment. Any member of the public want to address us on this item or ask questions?
Name is Rob Miller, and I'm representing the Donner County Farm Bureau, and we're really interested in the fact that when this program first started, there was the ability to question some of their results, some of their actions. And as time progressed, they have eliminated any possibility of questioning their information. And I think it's really important to note that two different state agencies consider the Rainey collector water two different ways. The Water Resources Board considers it to be groundwater, and the State Water Quality Control Board considers the Rainey collector water to be surface water. And I think Randy has done a very, very good job in getting stuff together, and Heidi and so forth. And you need to really push which agency's right, which state agency is actually correct. I would certainly think that because the Rainy Collector is collecting Smith River water, it's surface water. And so if that, in fact, then gets approved, then all of this work is not necessary and the expense is not necessary, and I think it's very important to do whatever's required to try to get them to at least reconsider their classification.
So all they really have to do is take a look at the permit that allows for drafting out of the Rainy Collector and what the other 2/3 of the capacity of the Rainy Collector would be allowed to do to reach that conclusion. They'd have to read a document that they approved, yeah. Next. Anybody else?
I was aware of the sediment that they had behind the feed store on Elk Valley. They were going to put it on top of French Hill, and I guess they had to have a permit if you're going to dump 60,000 cubic yards of sediment. So they took and they just dumped it behind the feed store, and now that it's been raining, all that sediment is now going back into the harbor that we just got done taking all of it out. And there's so many carcinogens and things like that. So my point is, we need to clean up our own backyard first. And it's really important that we be aware. I mean, just to go back there and dump 60,000.
Okay, we're going to ask you to stay on topic. This is regarding the Smith River Plain water situation, water management.
Okay, and the ground, and that, well, okay, I was just, and they said the groundwater is good, huh?
Thank you very much. Anybody else? Okay.
Blake Alexander with Alexander Dairy. Just a quick observation, and I don't really have facts, just what's in my head and what I know, and generally the way I understand it. But I read in that report that there were 8,000 acres irrigated, and I assume that meant that it was all groundwater irrigated according to the way it was categorized. And as I sit here and just think it through, I know I've got some water where we're pulling surface water, and others do also. And I would guess that it's 20 to 30% of that ground, that 8,000 acres, that's irrigated by surface water. So I just want to put that on the table. I'm not sure what it'll affect, positive or negative, but that's it. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Anybody else? Okay, I'm going to bring it back to the board for possible direction. I'm going to let all the supervisors weigh in after I give an idea of a direction I think we might consider. We had talked when we reviewed the goal committees of adding an additional goal that had to do with resources, and let that be the conduit from the board to not only to and through staff, but also to the government agencies as it affects our natural resources. And this just isn't in the Forest Service, but this now obviously is water management, as well as elk management. I mean, there's a lot of different things we're finding. So what do you think? Do you want to weigh in? And obviously we need to talk to Senator McGuire, we need to talk to Congressman Huffman, but I think we need to have a process that validates that, and I think the goal committee is the best way to do it, and should start almost immediately, and it can allow for public members to weigh in as well. Okay? Okay, I'll put my recommendations for those two people to serve on that on our next agenda, because we're going to be dealing with some moving around of the committees. Jerry, do you have any? Roger, you were going to say something? No? Okay. Then direction to staff, Jay, and be on the agenda for next meeting. Thank you for your participation on that. Thank you for your hard work on that, Randy. Number 20 is to approve and authorize the purchase and installation of some seals and signs in the Flynn Center from the future facility. Supervisor Hemmingson, you tell us what happened in your committee.
We, at the direction of this board, worked on the position and type of mottos, In God We Trust and E Pluribus Unum, and found a spot, and at the request of this board, we're to come back with one recommendation. You got your wish.
Comments, board members?
Nope, this Supervisor Hemmingson and I have consensus.
Is that a motion?
It is.
There's been a motion. Can I get a second?
I'll second it.
It's been moved and seconded to place the motto "In God We Trust," as well as the motto "E Pluribus Unum," the national motto, separated by the county seal, on a wall out there in the foyer between the two bulletin boards. Public comment. Back to the board. Other comment? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries unanimously. And even though ours was in black and white, I'm sure you guys were going to talk about colors, right? Oh, yeah, let's pull the vote since we're spending $100. And where's that $100 coming from?
Yeah, take it out of my travel budget.
We'll find a spot.
Okay. Pull the vote, please.
Supervisor McClure?
Yes.
Supervisor Hemmingson?
Yes.
Supervisor Gitlin?
Yes.
Supervisor Howard?
Yes.
Chair Finnegan?
Yes. And with that, we consider any miscellaneous legislative and budget matters pertinent to the County of Del Norte. I know there's a lot going on, but not really anything substantive.
Yeah, there's a number of bills still out there, some in conference, some committee, some on the floor. A couple of them to note, AB 243, which is Assemblyman Wood's bill regarding cultivation of medical marijuana, has been going throughout the counties, including the 5 counties that initiated the policies regarding recreational use that in advance. There's been a lot of changes in the wording. I think the Assemblyman has been very open to taking suggestions from all the counties, which has been nice. He's been involved in the recreational side of this also. So we'll be monitoring that. There's been a number of conference calls. I sat in on one of those. Since that date, there were extensive changes. He also has a bill 325 that requires a 60-day response to submit applications submitted to CDBG, which is always nice to be able to get responses back in a timely manner so that if money is to be distributed, it's done in a timely manner and the services can be provided. And also AB 1262 is Woods, and it deals with broadband funds for rural areas, so we'll be monitoring that too.
Very good. I'm going to run it backwards this time, Jay, and I'm going to let you lead off with a report from the CAO, since everything's going positive.
Well, over the last couple of weeks, I've dealt with some personnel issues on a couple of different levels. Had meetings with department heads, attended the ELK meeting at the Grange, have had mediation meetings with the Sheriff Employees Association and IHSS negotiations, and had very extensive discussion with a number of people involved in the CDBG process in order to make sure that our application was held in a timely manner, and we were successful in that case. We'll get into that a little bit later, but there will be some thanks sent out to a number of people and department heads at the state level that got involved. At the request of the chairman, I was asked to report out regarding panhandling and aggressive panhandling and any of the steps that have been taken through the county or any others at this point. I think the board will recall back in October of 2014 that the board had a discussion regarding excessive panhandling, specifically around the potential of having an ordinance passed similar to ordinances in Oregon, although at that point there was no direction given to have county council prepare an ordinance. Staff was asked to engage other partners as appropriate, including having a meeting with the city. I did talk to the city manager shortly after that meeting, talking about their intents. They had no intention to amend their ordinances at that time. Had discussions with Health and Human Services, who have taken on some outreach through primarily mental health to try to get information out to individuals on what services are available Also participating with faith-based groups in regards to getting that information out also. The Board of Supervisors had a lengthy discussion about the issue. At that time, there was a lot of factors that were brought up: mental health, enforcement of existing ordinances, staffing, priorities. Had a recent discussion with the city manager regarding where they are at this point, and they are still not in a position of having that, of planning on changing their ordinances. We do have a 2x2 coming up in the following week, and that can be discussed at that time. So at this point, the primary outreach has been through Health and Human Services, mental health, and alcohol and other drug services. And if the board would like to go in any direction, they can certainly give direction to staff.
Good, thank you. Supervisor Howard, we'll just report out.
Absolutely. So last night, Supervisor Hemmingson and I attended a meeting that was requested for the public by the Yurok Tribal Council. Supervisor Hemmingson and I attended this specifically to talk about Blue Creek, and it was a very well attended meeting, both with Yurok membership, Yurok Council folks. Very diverse crowd, and there wasn't one side, whether it was Yurok, whether it was county, whether it was guides, that was taken. There was conversation across the board, and it was very clear that even within their own membership, they were going to have a hard time controlling whether or not individual members of the tribe would be able to fish Blue Creek, and those folks were very outspoken. It's a very passionate issue to them. It's an issue of moral standing about their beliefs, and it's not necessarily based on science that we could find or population status of steelhead or Chinook salmon, as neither of the species that we're currently requesting protection for with the closure are listed species by the feds or by the state. And so we're in a wrestling match. We're in a delicate situation. I think the outreach that the tribe took is extremely appreciated by both Supervisor Hemmingson and I. We acknowledged last night that those conversations need to continue and continue earlier than the regulations being set. And I strongly believe that the council members that were present there and Troy Fletcher will make sure that those discussions happen. But in the interim, we've got some difficult things to wrestle with. But it was great to see also Jackie Carmison-Hostler there, Commissioner for the Fish and Game Commission, saying this is not over yet. They have requested that the Department of Fish and Wildlife do the science that is necessary to make sure that they make the appropriate and right decisions in the future. And so the guides weren't leaving there in the meetings, and there was a lot of guides, probably 15 of them last night, that showed up to express their opinions and concerns. And so it was a great meeting. It was a great way to get your frustrations out on the table. I'm sure Supervisor Hemmingson can expand on that. We also attended a meeting of the National and State Parks 2x2. Some things that came out of this meeting were specific to closures of Howland Hill Road this year for repair of some culverts. Fortunately, they're going to be doing that after the tourism season in September. And then one thing that was of great deal of interest that will be happening in 2016 will be the lease during the centennial celebration for national parks of California condors in the Bald Hill areas. It's going to start out with an experimental release of just a pair of birds. That might bring a few bird watchers into our neighborhood to expand on all this great tourism we're seeing this year. The other meeting I attended, which was extremely important, I think, is to develop relationships, which we all do on a regular basis as elected officials. But this was with the new directors of state parks, Lisa Mangot. Lisa came over from the Department of Finance and is now the new director of state parks. We had an immediate connection because she's also a graduate of UC Davis and grew up in Citrus Heights as an Army brat, so it was great to see somebody with that connection down there. We've got a lot to talk about as a county with her, and she's definitely open to those discussions, and she encouraged all of us to meet with her when we're in Sacramento, and I said I know we will.
Great. Supervisor McClure.
Was that it? I have others, but let's.
Oh, no, go ahead, I thought you were done.
Let's move on.
No, it's not.
Gosh darn it. Attended the elk issues in Fort Dick, and I'm glad to see members of the public taking issues in their own hands, trying to get cooperatives together, specifically like for share programs that the state does offer that would allow smaller landowners to have elk hunting opportunities on their land and take care of potentially nuisance animals. Attended the Del Norte Local Transportation Commission, which evolved in some questions that I had for Charlie Fielder that I also visited with on Sunday, and I was glad to hear a lot of action from Congressman Huffman's group in moving particular pieces of Lance Chance grade forward for funding. That was extremely good news that was reported out by Charlie. And the Cal Ore mixer the chamber put on. Please.
Very good.
Thank you. Yes, I've had, since we met last time, I went to Arcata for an event with Congressman Huffman, and I was able to touch base with a lot of different people that have been working in his office and also in the state offices. I participated in the 4th of July parade, and that was fun. Yesterday, we did a review of the solid waste agenda for next week. I have a meeting tomorrow with the 2x2 with the city to discuss issues of people who need assistance. And juvenile justice met and signed off on the borrow and the juvenile halls report to the state, and again highlighted that we need to be working on some kind of plan, ultimately, if we can find the money, to fix the barracks at Barrow. So that's forever trying to figure out how to do that, but we need to always keep that, I think, on the front burner. I participated in a webinar that is going to release $4 million to the state of California for museum enhancement in the state, and the grants are from $50,000 to $250,000 each. And in that webinar, it's designed to do capital improvement, which is a real nice thing to have. And so I haven't talked with the museum staff yet or with county staff in relationship to, do we need to apply for anything? For instance, at the lighthouse, we have window issues that need to be done. And there's all sorts of other issues. And since it's a joint-owned project, it would need to be the county and would apply and let the museum, because the county owns the lighthouse. So it's something to look into. It's due mid-September, and I have given Tony some of the information, and then I can help with what I learned on the webinar, because this group, it's pretty interesting that they're going to do a one-letter page and tell you if they think that you're on the right funding path. And so you don't have to spend the whole time coming up with this giant proposal and then being denied at the end. They're going to let you do a one-page question and answer. Do you think this is fundable? That kind of thing. And then I think that I've also been doing some research on some rehousing projects around the country. And San Francisco has a very aggressive rehousing project that seems to be working, as does Hawaii. So when we start to plan of what to do with the people who need housing in our community, it's already out there. We don't have to start at ground zero. We can take pieces and pick from different projects that are good. I think that one of the biggest pieces that we need to get the word out is that social services can assist people in getting an ID. I ran into a former student. He appeared to not be doing really well. I said, "Hey, how you doing?" And he said, "Well, I'm trying to get into rehab, but I don't have a birth certificate, so I don't have any ID." And there was no money to get the ID, because if you get a state ID, it's like $40 or something. And so we kind of have people that get into a spiral down, and we can't assist them in getting the spiral to go back up. So social services can assist people in getting an ID. And so that word needs to somehow be spread across the community, because that's the first step. You know, if you've lost your home and you were robbed and you don't have an ID, it's really difficult to get assistance, even at social services. So the first step is going to be that ID program, and I hope that we get pretty aggressive with it and get it out with PSAs and stuff, because that is just the first step. And then the other project that I'm working on with Senator McGuire's office, we've talked a lot about the need for a resources person, and that we don't have the financial capacity in the community development to hire just a resource planner. And so I put together a little proposal to McGuire's office that we could possibly use a part-time liaison between resources and the county. And then that person it would be a lot like the MLPA program, where that person would work with with the agencies and with the county, and come up with plans on how to deal in different management arenas. And they got very excited about it. So I would like to have this board give permission to staff to start that discussion, to pull up the MLPA process that we used, and have staff start working with McGuire's office with the ability to ultimately have, it's going to be a part-time position at first, to have a person in our county. They were interested enough that I had originally made a proposal that this be a regional person to take care, thinking that I could get more juice from that. And they said, no, don't do that. Just do Del Norte County. So it's kind of exciting, and so I would hope that this group, that you guys would all agree with me and that we can have staff start working on this. Thanks.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, I'd hope it wouldn't be just part-time, because it's kind of a full-time position when you talk about. Well, I'm thinking for starters, it needs to be a full-time and then work to a part-time, but anyway, getting to my list of stuff, I'll try to go through it here fairly quickly. Chair Finnegan and I met with CDD staff to talk about a conservation easement that was a possibility in the Klamath area. I had an informal dinner barbecue meeting with the new superintendent of schools, Jeff Harris, and his family. Seems like a very nice family. Supervisor McClure and I attended the Automation and Goal Committee meeting, and I was a little bit late because I was lost. I couldn't find my way around. I evidently didn't know where I was supposed to be, but finally got there, and I was very excited about the GIS improvements. That data seems to be now just starting to come to life, and we'll be seeing layers that we'll be able to access on the computer. I think it's going to be pretty neat. Attended a chamber mixer at Recology Del Norte. Attended a elk management plan workshop out at the Lake Earl Grange. As Supervisor Howard stated, the SHARE program seems to be a great alternative to maybe some elk management. I would like to acknowledge my niece's daughter, Mercedes McDougall, who was nominated by Buzz Aldrin to attend the Congress of Future Science and Technology Leaders in Boston. So that's a cool thing.
Yeah.
I did celebrate my anniversary, been married for a number of years.
Don't say the wrong number.
Well, I always say that we've had 25 wonderful years, and out of 42, that's not bad. But anyway, I also attended the North Coast Resource Partnership meeting in Weaverville, where we approved the 2015 priority project recommendations from the Technical Peer Review Committee, and amongst that was an application that the county and city have put in for a lift station rehab, which is much needed. Out of $11 million, we got $815,000 so for that particular project. So that's a good deal. We'll be able to move forward on that. I attended the deck party, 4th of July parade, had a Border Coast Regional Airport Authority meeting, where we're just now starting to look at the terminal project and the things that are coming up for that. We did reject all the bids for the mitigation projects because of kind of a glitch in qualifications, and we just threw them all out and we're putting it out for bid again. So hopefully that will come back at our next meeting. Had a Northwest RC&D meeting, Resource Conservation and Development meeting, where we approved our budget and our new employee handbook. We had a local transportation commission meeting, as Supervisor Howard talked about. We awarded $110,000 to the Klamath Boulevard project, which is match funding for them. They are providing over $1 million, so that's pretty good leverage on those funds. And also approved $45,000 for the county and $45,000 for the city on sidewalk projects around schools. Had a presentation on the possible eruption of Mount Shasta and what those effects would be. Went to another chamber mixer at Calor Lifelight out at the airport, and as Supervisor Howard said, we had a state and national parks 2x2. I think he hit the highlights, the closure on Howland Hill Road, which will start in September 16th and finish in early spring. And then we did go down to Klamath and talked about the Blue Creek closure. And as he said, it was very well attended. We had tribal members, special interest groups, guides, as well as the Fish and Game Commissioner, Jackie Hostler-Carmison. Interesting meeting. It's too bad that it was too late, and it would have been nice if it would have been 8 months earlier, or at least 6 months earlier, before the decision was made, so that we could have ironed out a lot of this stuff before it became a huge issue. I think we could have come to an agreement much earlier if we would have all gotten together. And that's it for me.
Thank you. Supervisor Gitlin.
Yes, thank you. Lots of news within District 1. I recognize the pride of community employees, pride of community by employees of Coast Auto, who were busy removing unsightly weeds from the public sidewalks surrounding the car lot. And thank you, Coast Auto, for making a difference and taking a bite out of blight. Also want to recognize Griffin's Furniture. Its beautiful new freshly painted red door, surrounded by lots of flowers, make it very inviting. And on the subject of blight, I want to offer my congratulations to the volunteers who finished the refurbishment of the iconic arrow on Highway 101 South at Elk Valley Road. Thank you to the Restad family for providing the supplies to perform the landmark reformation. From a decades-old rusty eyesore to a beautiful cobalt blue icon surrounded by flowers and flags. And just in time for the July 4th holiday, the 4 volunteers were recognized as the June winner of the Making a Difference Award, taking a bite out of blight, and were my guests for dinner after the arrow was completed. At the July 3rd deck party, Angela and I volunteered as one of the several volunteer bartenders. I must have carded about 30 to 35 people over the age of 21, mostly in that mid-30-year area, but it was all in good fun. A few folks said to me I was a bit shy on mixing drinks with their tonic, juice, or soda. Should have been a little more heavy on that. I'll try to do better next time. And while on the subject of the 4th of July, the parade itself was quite incredible. I was honored to be sitting in a beautiful 63 Ford Galaxy embossed with the Take a Bite Out of Blight magnetic signs on each door. I want to thank Ken Miller for chauffeuring me in his magnificent vehicle, and a great parade indeed. I also took as many pictures of people looking at the parade as I could and sent them to them. Also, a kind of a reverse. You're taking a picture of me, I'm taking a picture of you. Attended the monthly Chamber of Commerce meeting where the subject was last-minute preparations for the busy July 4th successful holiday. Sunday, July 5th, several volunteers, including Mayor Ron Gastineau, joined us for the Lions Club Take a Bite Out of Blight barbecue pit cleanup off Howe Drive from Battery Point all the way to the pool. The weekly cleanups continue every Saturday at 10 o'clock and attract hero volunteers to help make this iconic area pristine. Last Thursday, I attended the monthly meeting of our North Coast Unified Air Quality Management District in Eureka, where the district unanimously passed a motion to send a letter to the Forest Service encouraging continued escalation of management of the forests in the wake of extreme fires besetting our area and the challenge to quell those fires with precious water supplies. Also attended Chamber Mixer at Recology, and finally Sea Cruise Car Show met yesterday. Nothing to report at this time for the October event.
Thank you. I also had some meetings. I'll try to keep it brief. Some of them were duplicative. I did have a meeting of the First 5 Children and Families Commission where we talked about finalizing our plan and also election of next year's officers, of which I will be one. Attended the mental health plan that I alluded to when we had Ms. Strom speaking. They're having these little workshops in different spots, and this one was at the Veterans Hall. And was well attended, albeit not too many people from the public, which it really needs to weigh in. Mostly agency people, representative of the Sheriff's Department and a representative, well, Ivan, Chief of Police, was there as well. And the focus really was on mental health and people that are the homeless, as well as perhaps panhandlers, that you know, the focus needs to be on assistance, not incarceration for these people. And the Chief of Police was very adamant about that. As the Sheriff's Department, it is not a priority to do anything but try to help them and assist them. And thank you very much to our Mental Health Director, Social Service Director, and of course the ecumenical group, the group of churches that's assisting there, Pastor Perez. So look forward to some things on that. Had a California Transportation Commission, the road usage charger pilot program in Sacramento that I attended. We're going to be bringing that in Sacramento up to the Eureka area to get some North Coast input. Attended the elk meeting at the Grange, and well attended. Fish and game, everything was said in 10 or 15 minutes, but they took 2 hours, as usually happens. Attended the CSAC Finance Corporation, which was a goal setting to see if what form it was going to continue to take, and then let out for a new executive director. Also attended the 4th of July parade. Always fun to be in that. And then, of course, the deck party. Attended the airport JPA. Yes, we did reject all the bids because we were keeping our eye on the prize and didn't want to get bogged down by any perceived suits that may have taken place that would have slowed the process down. So we're doing well there. Then I went to the National Association of Counties. Was there for a couple of days representing California on the Western Interstate region, also on the Transportation Steering Committee and in the Airport Subcommittee. I had meetings with the director, the cabinet level person on transportation, Secretary of Transportation, as well as the Secretary who is the liaison with counties working directly out of the White House. And without telling you everything that was said, because a lot of this stuff we report on all the time, this sequestration, people aren't worrying about it. And the reason they're not worrying about it is that was the big threat last year and even the year before. Oh, it's coming. You're going off the cliff. And then last year came and nothing happened. Well, what happened was they pushed it back a year. It's there. And so, you know, look, nobody runs a business or a government by just saying, okay, we can't balance our budget, so we're just going to cut 20%. We don't care. 20% off your police force, 20% out of transportation, 20% out of social services, CDBG, blah, blah, blah. That's what's going to happen. And the impact for small rural communities is going to be far more of an impact than in some of the larger communities that have the economies to sustain that. So something we should be aware of, and you can be talking to your elected officials in Washington about. And aside from that, you know, I had one of the other focuses there has been brought up about mental health and housing. And there are some pushes, and instead we're getting distracted by all these spitball throwers when there's some great opportunities. There is a focus on veterans, homeless veterans, and especially veterans with mental health issues, which unfortunately most of them do if they're homeless. There is a substantial amount of money that's available through the vets, as well as a substantial amount of money through our local mental health. So we're going to be working, I am going to be working, as the other supervisors hopefully, with our mental health director and the VA to see if we can't start doing something like that, and I think the churches are identifying some of those people as well. I would like tri-agency maybe to invite Redwood Coast or Redwood Connect to come up and talk to you about broadband. We've stated we have more capacity and more speed here in Delaware County, and we're not doing anything with it. And so we need to find a way to get it out to businesses, to get it out in the community, to allow our children opportunity for education, as well as create a vibrant economy. It's here. That's what economic development is, as well as early childhood education, which really go hand in hand there. And then unfortunately, I received, obviously I go down to Klamath and talk with constituents, and I talk with constituents here, and it used to be a real estate office, but it's not anymore. It's my second county office, I think. But lots of visits regarding what's going on, calls and letters regarding negative issues regarding people on certain committees. So we are going to be taking that up at our next meeting. And as far as the opinion pieces in the newspaper, that they're just that, those of individuals, not of this board. This board, as heard reported out with El Tico, which Supervisor Howard attended for me, are making great strides with the congressman who needs to be an ally if we are to obtain funding, if we are to be able to speed up the CEQA or NEPA process, if we are to be able to achieve any results with the environmental community regarding last chance grade. And anybody who thinks otherwise is not in tune with the process or with what is going on. And with that, I want to thank all of you for attending, and unfortunately, it won't be a love fest at our next meeting.
Chair Finnegan?
Yes.
If we were to address this direction to staff specific to a resource position working with Senator McGuire's office, how do we go about doing that?
Okay. Well, I'm hearing, and if by consensus there is that direction to do that, then I would so direct unless I hear opposition. Is there opposition?
I'd just like more information before we move.
Is there opposition to direct staff to try to start the process to ask for some resource help here?
No.
The answer is no for you? Okay, it's 4-1. Supervisor Gitlin in the negative.
No, it's not
Please
what
do
I
so.
said. Chair, I said I'd like more information. If we get that, I'm fine with it. If we don't have that information, if we get that, fine. That's what I said.
Okay. Do you or do you not want to direct staff to look into it, bring something back to us on it?
Yes, Chairman.
Good. It's unanimous. All right. Meeting adjourned. Thank you.